What happens when Washington finally says the quiet part out loud and still does nothing to stop it? In this explosive exchange, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez confronts Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over a question millions of Americans would ask if they had the microphone themselves. If these insurance giants are already defrauding the public, why are they still being rewarded with billions more? What begins as a sharp policy dispute quickly turns into something deeper, a moment that exposes the uneasy relationship between public outrage, corporate power, and a healthcare system that seems to protect the very forces people no longer trust. And once that question is asked, the hearing stops feeling routine and starts feeling like an indictment. In this explosive exchange, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez confronts Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over a question millions of Americans would ask if they had the microphone themselves. If these insurance giants are already defrauding the public, why are they still being rewarded with billions more? What begins as a sharp policy dispute quickly turns into something deeper, a moment that exposes the uneasy relationship between public outrage, corporate power, and a healthcare system that seems to protect the very forces people no longer trust. And once that question is asked, the hearing stops feeling routine and starts feeling like an indictment.
And how you doing, Mr. Secretary?
Good. Thank you for asking.
No, of course, of course. I'm not sure if you remember our last chat about a year ago where we talked about Medicare Advantage. But, I think one area of agreement that we have, I hope, is that these insurance companies are fleecing the public, right? Can we agree on that?
Absolutely.
And they are, it's highway robbery on the American people, on people who are sick, on seniors. We're on the same page about that, right?
Yes.
And last year, I brought up the Medicare Advantage program to you because these corporations like UnitedHealthcare, Aetna, are known to be defrauding the public. And really, we know that with Medicare Advantage, it's to the tune of about $80 billion. And the Department of Justice has, in fact, opened an actual—
You mentioned United last time.
So you remember this, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad that we're able to kind of jog the memory on there. And we chatted about this, and we actually chatted about it afterwards, too. And so we know this. We're all on the same page here. United, CVS, Aetna, they're defrauding the American public to the tune of $80 billion a year. We know that they're doing this to the public. You know it, I know it. We've even had some bipartisan chat about this. And so I was surprised to see about 2 weeks ago, you had decided to give them another $13 billion. And it was used through the mechanism of the MA reimbursement rates. But I want to know, why did you do that?
And first of all, I agree with you on everything that you said. We have to look at the reimbursements that the industry get, which they said there'd been a 5% increase in cost. And that if we didn't give them the full 5%, they were going to lose, that it would impair patient choice, particularly in some regions of the country. The industry would leave. We gave them a 2% raise.
Right. And I hear what you're saying, Mr. Secretary, that the industry is saying that they're increasing these costs, but the industry is defrauding the public. So we know they're lying. We know they're lying through even their mechanisms. They are upcoding. They are telling us, the public, the government, Medicare, our systems, that people are sicker than they are so that they can get more money. They're lowering their reimbursement rates. They're increasing denial. So we know that these folks are lying. We know that they're bad actors. And if I'm hearing you correctly, we are giving them more money because they're saying that they need it?
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate everything you've done, and you speaking out about upcoding. We are ending upcoding. We're using AI now to detect it, to prosecute it, and to end it. Yeah, they're lying, but my job as HHS Secretary, I have to balance the impact on patients if there are no options in those areas. So we'll do a lot to verify we don't trust. We do a lot to verify.
And I hear what you're saying. I mean, even when you talked about that 2%, it's something that I found interesting too, because that 2.48% wasn't initially what you were going to go for. You had announced in January that, in fact, CMS had proposed an increase of 0.09%, which would have essentially kept payments flat at minimum to these corporations like United and Aetna that are robbing us. And so there was an interesting amendment that you had made. We've got the experts saying, okay, even when you start looking at that inflation rate or that cost rate, even that at most is 0.09%. But then it seemed as though there was some industry backlash. And now we're at 2.48%. We're giving them $13 billion when they are stealing $80 billion a year as it is. I say we let them eat it. Why not?
Well, you can see from what we originally published what our intention was, to give them essentially nothing.
Okay.
And we got a huge blowback, not only from the industry, but providers and everybody else who said, we are going to experience closures. We're going to experience places where you cannot get insurance. It is going to leave all these patients high and dry. We did our own investigation. And, you can look at healthcare costs.
Representative, time's up. And you can,
Anyway, I really appreciate you giving me a chance to answer questions. I can't thank you enough for that.
okay.
Appreciate it.
By the time this exchange is over, the story is no longer just about one reimbursement decision or one tense conversation inside a hearing room. It becomes a portrait of something much larger, a system so deeply entangled with corporate power that even when officials publicly acknowledge the abuse, they still struggle to break free. That is what gives this moment its force. AOC is not simply arguing over numbers. She is forcing open a contradiction at the center of modern American healthcare. Everyone claims to know the game is rigged. Everyone says the public is being overcharged, manipulated, and denied what they paid for. And yet the money keeps flowing in the same direction. In that sense, this is not just oversight, it is exposure. Because the hearing shows how close government can come to admitting the truth without fully confronting its consequences. AOC's line of questioning works because it sounds less like political theater and more like the voice of public frustration finally entering the room. She names the corporations. She points to alleged fraud. She describes a system where companies inflate diagnoses, upcode patients, and drain billions while ordinary people are left navigating fear, confusion, and shrinking options. And then she asks the question that gives the clip its hook. If we already know this, why are we still giving them more? That is the moment where the audience leans in because it cuts through jargon and gets to the motive. Not policy language, not bureaucratic phrasing, motive. Why does a system keep feeding what it admits is broken? Kennedy's response adds another layer of tension because he does not reject the premise. In fact, he appears to agree with much of the criticism. He says the fraud is real. He says upcoding is being targeted. He says enforcement and verification matter. But then comes the justification. If the government does not respond to industry pressure, some regions could lose providers, patients could lose options, and the fallout could hit vulnerable people first. That answer is what makes the exchange feel so documentary-worthy, because it reveals how institutional power often defends compromise not by denying wrongdoing, but by arguing that the alternative would hurt innocent people even more. And that is a darker, more difficult reality than simple corruption. It suggests a system where bad actors are so deeply embedded that punishing them suddenly feels dangerous, where accountability is delayed, not because leaders do not see the problem, but because they fear the collapse that might follow if they pull too hard on the thread. That is what makes this hearing feel bigger than the room it happens in. It is not just a clash between AOC and Kennedy. It is a clash between two different moral logics. One says, if the public is being robbed, stop rewarding the robbers. The other says, If you move too fast, the people caught in the middle may suffer first. And somewhere between those two positions sits the American patient, the senior on Medicare Advantage, the family trapped between premiums and denials, the ordinary citizen who keeps hearing that reform is coming while the same giants keep getting stronger. This is where the video gains emotional weight, because behind every percentage point, every reimbursement rate, every budget adjustment, real lives are being filtered through a machine that too often treats human need like a line item. The audience does not stay because this is just a smart argument. They stay because the argument points to a truth they already suspect, that the system may be built in a way that makes honesty possible, but change painfully difficult. And that is why the ending of this clip should not feel like closure. It should feel like a question mark hanging over the entire healthcare debate. If even the people in charge can agree that the abuse is happening, then what exactly is stopping the system from changing? Is it caution? Is it captured? Is it fear of instability? Or is this simply what power looks like when it becomes too expensive to challenge? In the end, this exchange is not memorable because somebody raised their voice. It is memorable because for a few minutes, the hearing strips away the usual excuses and exposes the central dilemma in plain language. The public may know who is taking advantage of them. The government may know it too, and yet the machinery keeps moving. That is what makes this moment so unsettling, and that is what makes it impossible to ignore. Because once people see how openly the contradiction can be described, they start asking a more dangerous question, not whether the system is broken, but whether it was ever designed to protect them in the first place. And if that question begins spreading beyond this hearing room, then this was never just another exchange on Capitol Hill. It was a crack in the script, a moment where public anger, policy failure, and corporate power all appeared in the same frame. And for a second, the mask slipped.